Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever you happen to be listening to another episode of the non-league Nosh. I am James, and as always, I am joined by my co-host this evening, Adam. How are you doing, sir, on what has been a glorious weekend?
Oh, hasn't it just? I have been in the garden so much.
Have you?
Yeah, it's been good. I kind of got in the spirit. I needed to stock up on the old vegetables, so Kate went to the farm shop and got some strawberry plants and stuff for outside, and we've ordered some grow bags. So going to try and do a bit of grow your own in this lockdown time. I thought we may as well do something semi-creative and get the little one involved as well.
Well,
So how about yourself?
yeah, not bad to be honest. It's been quite a fun weekend. I've had a lot of time with my little boy, which has been great. He's been happy, so that's all you can really ask for.
At least one of them's been happy, because mine has been miserable as sin.
Well, I think there's a little bit of an age difference between our two, so I think it's understandable.
Yeah, I can't wait until the day this catches up on you, mate. You're having a dream life right now.
I'm getting it quite good, to be honest.
Yeah, I know.
How obviously not a nice situation for everyone to be involved in, but for me personally, getting to spend so much time at home and so much time with my boy is something I am really taking advantage of. But
You're having your own maternity leave without carrying it.
yeah, exactly. So as normal now, Adam, we are not alone this evening. We are joined by a man that needs no introduction to non-league football in Suffolk, but I'm going to give him a very brief introduction. And Adam, I want you to listen to the number of clubs that over a 25, I believe it's 25 or 24 year spell in the game. I want you to listen to some of these clubs, Adam, right?
Go for it.
Cornard twice, Melford twice, Debenham, Ipswich Valley Rangers, Westerfield, Ipswich Wanderers, Team Bury, Thurston, Bacton, Brantham, Grunsborough, Harwich, and Cromer. 2,500 games of football, which started in 1982. It is none other than Paul Grainger. How are you doing, sir, on this evening?
Very good, thank you.
How did you like that as an introduction?
Makes me sound terrible. It's actually over a 38-year period.
38 years, wow.
Yeah, it's kind of it's a long while. It sounds like a lot of clubs, but it's mostly like 2 or 3 years of time.
Well, you're covering every blade of grass in the county, though.
Yeah, absolutely. That doesn't include school games I've done, and it's quite a lot of youth games as well.
I'm trying to think of a professional manager in the game that's done that kind of level of clubs. I'm thinking maybe somebody like Martin Allen, maybe somebody like that. He's been to, going back to clubs as well is quite a rarity. So to see some of those names popping up twice is quite impressive. But yeah, so 38 years, did you say?
Yeah, 1982. I did what used to be, it was called the prelim badge then. There was only prelim and like pro badges back in that day, and you had to basically be a pro to get the pro badge. And
right.
I did the prelim with Mickey Cook, the Colchester United legend, in 1982 at Essex University, strangely enough.
Wow.
When I was a mere sixth former.
Well, you got straight out of the blocks then.
Yeah, literally. We wanted a team at my sixth form, and they wouldn't let us have one unless we ran it ourselves. So me and one of the other lads did the course, so we at least had some idea what to do. Very different then. The exam back then was like you did a practical coaching assessment, but you also had an hour-long exam on the laws of the game and an hour and a half long coaching written exam as well, where you had to put down what drills you'd do and how they'd work and stuff like that. You had to actually write it instead of just going out and showing it.
Wow.
Sounds very, very detailed compared to some of the stuff we were being told about by Freya.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it's all changed now. You've got like level 1, 2. There's like 4 levels now, I think.
Yeah.
And level 1 is like, really, really basic.
Yeah, she did sort of say unless you know nothing about the game, you'd really struggle to fail it.
Yeah, I think that's a fair comment.
Do you know what? It's the kind of thing that I would fail, though. Do you know what I mean? I just.
You're not really doing much to big yourself up there, James.
I can just imagine myself going along to it and just be like, coming out and being, we haven't had anybody fail in about 10 years, but well done, you've managed to succeed.
You've taken the mantle.
Yeah, exactly. But how are you doing, Paul, at the current time? Obviously, being in the game for so long, being constantly involved with different teams, whether or not it's managing, assisting, or even just helping out teams from time to time. How have you found the past few weeks, and especially in terms of isolation and stuff like that?
Absolutely horrific football wise. It's like I'd kind of anticipated, things were going to finish soon on the non-league scale, so I treated myself to La Liga TV, where you get 4 live games from Spain every Saturday and every Sunday.
How's that been going?
Well, yeah, exactly. It was sort of like I got that and I thought, yeah, this is going to be great. I'm going to really sort of watch loads of TV football when the normal football stops. And then, of course, everything stopped. And now there's just nothing. It's horrific. I'd kill to watch a game at the moment live. I really would.
Yeah. It must be very difficult going from, as I said, the career that you've kind of had to kind of next to nothing. We've got quite a few topics that we want to go through tonight. We didn't record a podcast on Thursday night, which we were due to. Both mine and Adam's kids that evening were not behaving entirely well, so we decided to bin that one off, and we wanted to talk about some of the topics that have gone on over the past few days. We've been kind of building up to this, really, haven't we, Adam, with the FA's decision on what they've decided to do with the season for the level of football that we are involved in. But they have now made a decision, so we are going to go into that in a bit more detail.
Yeah.
Victor's decision as well to drop the sponsorship for certain levels of the game in this area, which again we'll talk about in a bit more detail, and we'll go more into Paul's career as well. But I wanted to start this off as we normally do by going through a little bit of a teaser questions, just to kind of open this up and find out a bit more about yourself, Paul. If you've listened to this, you'll know the questions that we do ask on here.
You need to start varying them up, I think, to catch people off guard,
Yeah, I do. I need to start coming up with some different ones, don't I?
If you've got any spare time tomorrow, James, maybe you could write some new ones.
Yeah, well, we'll talk about that when we finish this podcast, Adam. Pub, bar, or club?
Pub, definitely pub.
Good man. Chinese or Indian?
I like both equally, but if I was getting a takeaway choice, it would always be a doner kebab with chili sauce and onions, if I'm being really honest.
Oh, absolutely.
I do love a kebab.
It's just throwing these questions right out the window.
That's something I'm missing right now, that is a doner kebab. Exactly. Have you ever had a doner pizza?
Yeah, I have, yeah.
That's something special, isn't it?
Yeah, I am a big doner kebab fan. I love them. I can't deny it.
There you go. Tea or coffee?
Definitely tea. Don't drink coffee.
Good man.
No, I'm sitting in with a coffee right now, so no, not a fan. Not a fan of that. This was actually one of the Twitter questions that we had come in, and I'm just going to find out the name of who asked it. I think it was Guy Hayes. He asked their favourite biscuit. Well, mine's favourite biscuit to dunk, but here's his favourite biscuit with match day tea. Now, I'm guessing this is some sort of inside joke.
Well, no, basically what it is, when we were all at Team Berry together, we used to take it in turns in bringing pre-match biscuits in along with the sweets, just for something extra. And as you may see if you followed the Twitter thread, he did one day bring in these appalling caramel banana or whatever they were, digestives that were horrific, and we were 7-0 down at half-time after eating them. So
they never got brought in again then.
I blamed it on the biscuits, because when he brought them in, I said, "What the hell are these? These aren't proper biscuits." But my choice answering the question, I think, would definitely be chocolate hobnobs.
Good man.
I love a chocolate hobnob.
You that was your answer, wasn't it, Adam?
Yeah.
There you go.
With a cup of tea, they are insanely good.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you haven't got a cup of tea, they're still a good pre-match biscuit.
The thing is, I can only eat a whole packet at a time.
I didn't realise the rules allowed anything else. I thought it's like a bottle of whiskey. Once you open it, you have to finish it.
Well, this is it. They don't keep.
No, you can't take them home with you. They melt in your pocket.
Very true.
I love how much detail you went into that. That was brilliant. I think I might know the answer to this one. Instagram or Twitter?
Twitter.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. Favorite artist or band?
Definitely AC/DC, no question. Seen them lots of times. Love all their music. Not even close. Anyone else?
Fair enough. I like it. It's a good shout. Favorite TV program?
Of all time, it would be Miami Vice. If we're going, or are you talking currently?
No. That's a good answer. I've never
love
seen
Miami
it, but I
Vice.
like it. It's
It's stylish cars, stylish ladies,
Stylish
great
ladies,
music,
love that.
great action, and the bad guys often won. Got away with it, which unlike most cop shows, you can normally predict that, the murderer gets done and the bad guy gets caught. But in Miami Vice, they often got away with it.
nice.
So, made it a little bit unpredictable.
There you go. Adam, might have to start looking into that as the weeks go on.
Yeah.
Favorite film? Do you have a favorite film?
Favorite film?
Like
sensible film, action film. It would definitely be Lock, Stock and Two Smoking Barrels.
Right.
Comedy film, Life of Brian. I love the Life of Brian.
Oh yes.
Good film.
It's a mission of mine to educate the new generations to the Life of Brian. I've shown it to so many people and they love it.
Do you know what? I'm going to suggest a film. This is my favorite film, and if anybody's wanting, something to do during this time, see if there's anywhere in which you can get A Few Good Men.
I've seen that.
It is a brilliant film. Adam, have you ever seen it?
I believe I have, but I cannot recall it because I recognise the title.
It's got Jack Nicholson, Tom Cruise, Kevin Bacon, Demi Moore. It's a brilliant film. Brilliant film. Just go and look for it. Go and find it. Anyone who's listening to this one.
Have you? I was going to say, you're into your music. Have you ever like comedy films? Have you ever watched Spinal Tap?
No.
Yes, I have. Yeah.
So good.
Yeah, I kind of I think the best way to describe it is I like so many films. So to pick a favourite's really hard. There's so many films I love. I love Rock and Roller, Snatch, that genre of films. They're a lot of those are quite similar, and they're all brilliant films.
Yeah. I'll have to look into that one, Adam. Cats or dogs?
Both, to be honest. I really like both. I haven't got either at the moment because I'm never in the house, and it wouldn't be fair. But I'm a great fan of both. I've always had both around me growing up, and both around me as an adult, really, as well.
Nice. Sky or BT?
Sky.
Yeah. And other than football, do you have a favourite sport?
I love T20 cricket. I'm not going to lie.
Good
But
man.
I also I like watching the rugby, and I like the Premier League darts as well. Well, darts in general, but I love the Premier League particularly.
Adam.
Yeah, I'm a big darts fan. I'm trying to get my missus to let me have a board at the minute. I'm desperate to get a darts board at home. Start throwing myself, but I love watching the darts.
Yeah, they're kind of it's a bit show busy combined with sport, and even the walk-on music and the crowd. It's just brilliant to watch.
Yeah. Other than that, I'm a big fan of rounders, aren't I, James?
Yes. American rounders.
Yeah.
American rounders.
Right. James absolutely ribs me every single time. I've tried to convert him to watching baseball, but he wasn't having it.
No, not at all. So, a couple of sport questions, and then we'll move on to the main topics. Who do you support?
Newcastle.
Nice. Any particular reason why Newcastle? Is it just
basically I grew up in Harwich, or my formative years of watching football. I wasn't allowed to go and watch Ipswich on my own, but I was allowed to go and watch Harwich and Parkston on my own. They played in black and white.
Right.
Didn't sell replica shirts, but you could get a Newcastle shirt that was black and white. So it was all about that, really.
Right.
That is a great story.
That is brilliant. I love that.
Yeah, that's awesome.
What did parents make of that decision? Were they?
They're not. They weren't really worried. My dad supports Blackpool purely because he saw them in the 1953 Cup final and liked Stanley Matthews, etc. So
yeah.
I've always I've watched the Ipswich and Colchester a lot as well, and sometimes you end up with it's not been the greatest glory hunt, as a lot of people have called me. They've said, "Oh, you glory hunter," but you know, they've won nothing in my lifetime, basically.
I don't think you can call a Newcastle fan a glory hunter, not by any stretch of the imagination.
It's never been glorious. It's been more hunt than glory.
Jeez, I think Norwich have won more trophies than Newcastle have. I mean, come on, that's definitely not glory hunting.
Even in our time, though, James, Newcastle have had some fine players go through the books. Like not just obviously Shearer, but you've got Peter Beardsley, Shaka Hislop,
Nobby Solano,
Nobby Solano, quality players. Like
yeah,
good entertaining team to watch, but maybe at the moment it's a bit of a dry patch.
Yeah, it is, but you know, it's still every time I go, whether at home or away, the atmosphere is unbelievable with the fans. You know, the fans are absolutely off the scale, fantastic.
Yeah.
You know, you always have fun. They're an absolute bunch of lunatics. It's a party, win or lose. It's great.
You're not allowed in the ground unless you don't have a T-shirt on either, are you?
Jumper,
I've not got quite that far yet. I think I'd probably be arrested, but I think I'll sort of try and keep my shirt on best I can. But you certainly wouldn't want to go in a thick coat. You'd be laughed out the stands.
Yeah.
But, you know, like a sweatshirt or a sort of a little hoodie is about as much as you're going to get away with, even if it's -10. You know.
So your favourite player growing up?
Growing up would have been George Best, actually.
Yeah, good shout.
Absolutely loved watching George Best. Never got bored of him, and he was a kind of a superstar off the field as well. He was, you know, everybody wanted to be George Best, didn't they? You know.
Yeah, definitely. And the best player you've seen live is the final question.
Oh, well, you see, I used to go and watch Ipswich in Europe, so I've seen so many. You know, I've seen like Platini and Falcao and people like that, Schumacher, but obviously it'd have to be Johan Cruyff, who played for Barcelona at Ipswich. Game.
It's good, isn't it, to have a team from East Anglia that have sort of had some success in Europe?
Yeah, I mean the level of players that used to play there was just, you know, I was seeing the likes of Platini, Boniek, you know, all
it's
the
quite a
top
shame
strikers in the world, and you know,
shame that the boys in Norfolk haven't really ever got to see.
Well, we have had one or two moments, but it was, you know, I was very young at the time, so I don't really like to talk about it, unlike certain fans down the road. About it, despite the fact I've had nothing going on for the past 20 years. But we're not going to go into that because it's
polish your Milk Cup winners medal and carry on.
Yes, will do. But anyway, I like that. There's some good answers in there. The AC/DC one in particular.
You've obviously seen some quality players live as well. Players that are gonna.
The Keegan era at Newcastle was incredible to go to.
Yeah,
I can imagine.
You know, I was asked the other day what my favourite ever professional game I attended was, and I went to Wimbledon versus Newcastle, which was a 3-3 draw where the score kept alternating. When Wimbledon were playing at Selhurst Park, Palace's ground.
Yeah.
I think the attendance was 12,000 or something, and there was 10,000 Newcastle fans all in one stand, and it was just unbelievable. That was in the days of when they had Les Ferdinand and Ginola and Gillespie and people just before Shearer joined, but they were still amazing even then.
That must have been around about the sort of time that Wimbledon were kind of going through their. Will they stay at Selhurst Park? Will they move home, or will they be relocated to Dublin? That kind of era, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was very strange, especially coming out of the ground afterwards. It's probably the most scared I've ever been. I got on a tube. I got on a tube train to go back towards the mainline stations, and basically every Newcastle fan was trying to get on the same tube train, and literally you couldn't breathe. It was really scary. There was no police there stopping their numbers. And basically, we were getting crushed in a train, and it was pretty scary. But, yeah.
Mental. So, let's move on, because I know Adam is going to have a lot to say on this particular topic. I've already exchanged a few messages with him off air about it, and I know how he feels about it. But we had the FA's decision, didn't we, Adam? It was on the 9th of April, which would have been Friday, wouldn't it? Thursday, rather. Big pardon. Thursday's decision that they are not going to be changing their minds about the seasons being null and void. Huge news. so many different lines in the statement coming out about why they've made the decision and, doing it to protect certain clubs and but before I get your thoughts on this, Adam, I think it's only right that we ask Paul, overall, what have you been making of this? Looking at things from afar and sort of like, obviously you're still involved in non-league, etc. Where do you kind of sit on, on the debate at the moment?
If I'm honest, I think the debate shouldn't even be being had yet. That everything that I've been reading about the virus and coming out of the virus has been saying the same thing, that there will be no team games until people can actually be immunised against the virus. And they're saying that's at least a year, maybe 18 months away. So I don't think there's going to be a next season. I honestly don't. I think if we're lucky, we might have, started the season in like March or April or something ridiculous. And we might as well have probably finished this season off then, because I think that's what's going to happen. And I think that anyone thinking that this is going to, August is going to go back to normal, I think it's just a fantasy, because they're quite clearly stating that you're not, even when we come out of lockdown, you're not going to be able to socially interact still. Therefore, you're not going to be able to touch other people, which means you're not going to be able to play football with them or against them. And I just don't think anybody needed to make a decision until they've got some sort of idea of whether we're starting football in June, December, or May of next year. Do you know what I mean?
Do you think the fact that I don't want this to become a political debate, but do you think that partly down to the fact that the government are not being crystal clear in terms of how long we're going to be in lockdown? Well, I say lockdown, it's not lockdown, but their version of lockdown 4, because we still don't know at the end of next week, which will be the 3-week deadline, whether or not we're going to be in for another 3 weeks or whether or not it's going to be a month.
We don't know. Now we will be.
Yeah, we will, but because people are not being clear about what is actually going to be happening, there's such a question mark for every single football league and every and for the FA as well.
Yeah, but they're still saying that even when you're out of lockdown, there's still going to have to be the sort of social keep your distance thing, or it will just come back. So, and that's the non-social distancing, they're saying can't be changed until there's immunisation against it, and everybody you talk to says that's a year away.
Well, there is that counter argument where they're saying that if this is like every other virus, that during the summer months it will clear, because obviously in hotter weathers, blah blah blah, that it can't have the room to grow and can't do the potential damage that it can do as things stand, blah 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 blah. Again, do you think that's kind of the FA's thinking? Well, we might be able to get some part of next season at least started, but
so they can go ahead and null and void it again.
I'm just playing devil's advocate, because I agree with everything you're saying, but I'm just trying to.
I don't think there'll be any football in this calendar year. I honestly don't.
Adam, do you agree with that?
I don't think next season will happen at all.
That's
based on, and if it does, it will become void again.
And how long do you keep doing this again and again?
Well, the problem is that within the initial stages of recovering from a virus, I've said before, you'll end up locking down certain counties and restricting travel. So the national pyramid will get blown to smithereens. It's just not going to happen. So they'll need a widespread approach that's going to work to everything. And it is more and more complicated, and there's so many factors that have led to the decision that you look back on, and nothing's going to change it now. It kind of is what it is. I know this legal case is now rumbling on, and maybe we'll revisit that in a few weeks' time. But
yeah,
they're saying there's a lot of things that leagues just wanted a decision and stuff, but now leagues have got a decision. Like, if there's no football next season, you'll probably only have about 50% of the clubs left.
Yeah. Well, I think what has become very clear since all of this has been decided is that the leagues have been a bit, well, we just want to know kind of where we stand. But if you listen to the clubs, a lot of them have been coming out with statements recently saying that they are not happy with decisions. All of a sudden, a load of clubs, especially from the actual National League, not down as far as our level of non-league football, but we've seen recently Notts County, Yeovil. We've got who is it? Hemel Hempstead.
But they're being asked to vote on something when they don't know the outcome, and that's hilarious.
Exactly. That there's a lot of teams now coming out and saying, "Well, hang on, this is not right. Something is not. What exactly are you asking us to vote on? What exactly are you asking us to do? Because it's so unclear, isn't it?"
They're clearly not going to be happy with the null and void option, though, because otherwise that argument wouldn't exist. Because what they've seen is that they've seen what's happened when a season does get ended. So they're asking to vote on the outcome, not on the option to end the season, because if they were happy with the null and void as an option, they would vote to end the season knowing that's probably what's going to happen, based on other outcomes. So to question it, raise it, and say no means that they don't want that outcome.
Yeah,
in my mind.
Yeah, it's very, 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 very confusing. What would you, Paul, from your perspective, what would you have done? What would be the ideal way of being able to finish this? Do you agree with the kind of points per game basis, or do you think they should kind of wait?
I think it should wait, and I think you should play the games. I don't think points per game is fair. I don't think null and void is fair. Everybody's getting. There's going to be a lot of losers unfairly unless you just play the games. And I honestly think they could have finished this season. I think it'll be next year. 2021 before we're playing. I think we could have just finished the season off. And, you just lose next season because that's probably what's going to happen anyway. And then there wouldn't be any arguments and no one would lose out.
Whenever it happens, finish one year before doing the next.
Yeah,
I'm not a big advocate.
Play midweek games more. There's, these are all levels where there's floodlights and things,
But you know what? One of the FA's key arguments and the reason they came to their decision was that they felt that, and it's hilarious, it would be difficult for clubs to arrange to play 2 games per week. Despite the fact that they have to do that through cups and everything else.
Yeah, it's ludicrous. You just if you scrap the League Cups, you'd virtually be there again anyway, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
So I suppose now now that they have made that decision again, it's all coming down to the legal perspective now, isn't it? Whether or not the people who have written the letter to the FA now want to bring more clubs into the fold and really pursue with a case to take this even further, because a letter is one thing, but to take it on to the next level, I suppose that is really going to be the next thing, isn't it? Because they've made the decision, they've voted on it again, they've not changed their mind. So where do clubs go now? What do they do?
I believe it would need to go to the Court of Arbitration of Sport for appeal, and I think that's in Switzerland or something. I don't know how much money is floating about in non-league, individual club level right now. I don't think it's going to be very much because there's been no income for a number of weeks. But it's going to take a serious punt from somebody to think that's going to be worth chucking money at. Yeah. I said on Twitter the other day, I think it's right to stand up for what you believe in.
Yeah.
But I think there might have to be a point where you step back from it, and that's where the FA have got everyone's hands tied. One of the best, most compelling arguments that I've seen in the last week, and something we haven't discussed together, is that non-league should follow American football and make their own association for the sport and come away from the FA. So it's got its own body that cares for it and is appropriate for that level of the game, because it's quite clear that the FA, although their motto may be for all, cannot apply the same rules, the same principles for all.
That's an interesting thought. I haven't thought of that. What do you make of it, Paul?
I don't know. That's a real grey area. I mean, I think the whole thing is it's all such a mess. I mean, like the RFU, the rugby people, they've promoted Newcastle from the Championship to the Rugby Premiership already because the season isn't going to finish. And they've already decided that they're getting promoted. So I did see a very good idea that someone had floated around on the internet that maybe what they should do to keep everything fair is promote the teams in the promotion positions, but not relegate the team in the relegation positions. So next year you'd in effect have 6 extra games in the top level and whatever, but it's only 6 extra games. You could fit those in midweek, and then people like Stowmarket, who deserve to go up without any question, could still go up. But teams maybe at the bottom who are in form and only 3 points off the, being able to save themselves or whatever, could still survive. Maybe there's an argument for that. If teams are far enough ahead, maybe you set a limit of, say, if they're 10 points ahead plus, then they get promoted. I don't know. It all seems very unfair. But as I say, for me, the whole thing isn't relevant because I don't think next season's going to happen. So,
Yeah.
I think the argument of saying, oh, well, when the season gets underway, the same players wouldn't be under contract. You'd have to have different player registrations. I think that's an absolutely void argument, because at the time when you can resume, the manager would put together the squad that would be relevant to continue the journey for what they set out to achieve anyway. And it seems ridiculous to say, well, the same players can't complete the season at non-league level when some clubs have to act like a flipping merry-go-round anyway.
Yeah.
Why are we actually that worried?
Yeah, and let's be honest, how many people are actually under contract steps 5 to 7? It ain't that many.
No, you will have quite a few players and a few clubs that do things that way, and that's fair enough. But yeah, are the majority.
There could be many.
Will not be. I think what has been on my mind over the past few days since the decision has been made is that they're very quick to decide what is actually going to be happening to the season. But there's been, again, I haven't seen anything where it actually says, right, this is what we're going to do to protect the leagues. This is what we're going to do to protect the clubs, make sure that people have got enough finances to make sure that clubs don't fold, don't have to drop down leagues. I have seen nothing.
I have seen some things, but not from the FA. Leagues themselves are funding small pots of money to help out.
Yeah.
Waiving some registration fees and stuff.
I saw one for that effect. Let me just see if I can find it whilst we're very quickly chatting. Yeah, here it is. The Hampshire Premier League Financial Support Package. They are all existing registration fees have been waived. Free entry for next season's league and cup competitions. All existing clubs reimbursed £100. 23 player registrations for the following season. Clubs will be given match balls, medical bag top-ups and player insurance upgrades and reimbursement for first aid referees and FA Level 1 courses. £10,000 is going to be invested to help protect their sides. But again, that's coming from a league. That's not coming from the overall governing body, which comes back to your thought, Adam.
Yep.
I don't know how it would be done. But, originally in the NFL, they did have the National Football League and the AFC, the American Football League, which eventually merged to create the Super Bowl. But originally there were 2 separate leagues. And we've seen recently the XFL come in, which unfortunately is now folded because of the current situation. But that was coming in to compete against NFL. There could be a case for it, but then where do they get promoted? Are they then allowed to be promoted into the Football League if they break away and the FA then say, well, we still have some some control over it? Do you know what I mean? Where does it?
That would be a tricky point, I think, and it depends on where clubs see their ultimate ambitions, I suppose, and what you're actually signing up to. It'd be a bit of a tricky one to actually sort out. I don't.
What the idea?
I don't. The thing is, you've got teams like Notts County who don't really want to be in the non-league structure. Yeovil as well.
Yep.
But then, if you go down as far as step 7, how many of those are going to be aspiring to actually ultimately feeling like they could play at, professional level? So there's a line to draw, but it's choosing where you draw it.
Yeah. It's an interesting concept. I like it. Practically, I don't know how it would be done, but like I said, I'm just still baffled by the fact that there's been absolutely zero communication from the FA to say what they're going to do to help protect clubs. Because Ollie Bayliss, who's a fantastic advocate for non-league football with the job that he does, he made a very good point after this statement saying, well, the leagues are not going to look entirely as they are because we've already seen that teams have dropped out. So for them to come out and make their statement to say that, they will remain the same for the following season.
10 have gone already.
Yeah, it's not going to be. It's not true, and they've done nothing to help them. It's just that's where I'm kind of,
I think we're early doors
Where are
to
we going?
discuss that at the moment, to be honest. And I think that when they've got a picture, like there will need to be a pre-season to get things going, whenever it lands. But when we're at that point, when we know we can start again, and hopefully they'll put in place a disaster management plan for should there be another outbreak or whatever, and things haven't passed. Hopefully when we get back underway, that it won't be necessary, but they should put the right plan in place. Then that could be managed, and we'd have to see. It's going to be an odd time.
Yeah. Like you said, I think now it's down to how far the legal matter goes and how far people are prepared to take that now. But as you quite rightly say, Paul, time is on those clubs' side now, isn't it? There's potential that it's not going to be a season for a long time.
Well, the strangest thing I think I've seen is that Suffolk FA reminded everybody in the week that players are still registered to their clubs until the 31st of May. So before you talk to anybody about next season, you need to still put 7 days in, which I find quite fascinating that they're saying you're signed till the 31st of May in a season that they're also saying doesn't exist.
Did you see the replies to that?
Yes,
they got an absolute hammering. Have you seen some of that, Adam?
Yeah.
No, I haven't, because I have seen some Suffolk FA things, and my mind has been in a place where I've actually switched off from it, as rude as that may seem.
It's quite bizarre, though.
I'm waiting for them to issue and someone to reveal that they've been fined for bringing the game into disrepute for their remarks, and that someone's going to have to pay a fine based on all of this.
Do you know what? I'm waiting for a letter to drop through my.
You're not affiliated to a club, so you won't have to worry.
Well, still, you are questioning. Do you know what I mean? Despite the fact that you're not affiliated, you are questioning. You are making remarks, and you never know, do you? You never know. But I am waiting for that letter one day.
I think in fairness, it's not Suffolk FA's fault. They're just following what they're told from above, aren't they? There's a lot of. Currently, there's some really good people at Suffolk FA. I think they've got like the best, some of the best people they've had there in a long time now. And it's easy to knock them, but they're in a no-win position as well, aren't they?
It's hard, but I'd like them to come out and say what their position on it was. So it's not to knock them, but I'd like to know what they're representing for Suffolk as a county. That's where I'd call them out.
That is a good point, actually. They have been very quiet throughout all of this.
Yeah, and I mean, I've heard nothing from the SIL as to what they're doing.
No, I have not.
The Furlough None haven't made a statement themselves. Suffolk FA haven't made a statement. I haven't seen anything from Norfolk FA. These are all people that are relevant in our area, but they're not. They haven't stepped up to the plate like other leagues have, and that concerns me.
I mean, you're involved within Westerfield still, if I'm correct.
No, I've finished there now.
Oh, you have? Okay. I was just going to ask, have you heard anything, or have you heard? Do you know of anyone who's actually heard any?
No, I think everybody's just waiting for guidance from above. I don't think anybody, I say being fair to Suffolk FA, I don't think they've had any say in what's been decided. Maybe one person might have had a vote or something, but. The whole thing just seems a bit of a shambles, really, in terms of, because no one can really, not a shambles because anyone's fault, but, you're trying to predict what you're going to do on something that we have no idea of what's going to happen on.
Yeah.
There's been no science in the decision. That's really abundantly clear.
Yeah, nobody knows, and nobody can know. You're just taking a guess, aren't you? So... how do you go forward when you've got no idea of what you're dealing with in 3 months' time, 6 months' time, and a year?
Yeah, very true. Very, very true. It's an interesting one. Again, as always, let us know in the comments what you make of the decision. Again, I don't know. It's a tough one. It is a tough one. There's never going to be a right answer. There's never going to be everyone agreeing. So let us know your thoughts. But we move on to the next topic of discussion. As I believe, Adam, you tagged me in this, or we might have discussed it privately. I don't know. You'll have to remind me. But the decision that BetVictor will not be sponsoring the Isthmian Northern Premier or Southern Football League next season.
And it rolls on absolutely fantastically. Would you like me to tell you why?
Well, yeah, go on. I'd like to hear the reasons behind it, because all I read was people's reaction to the news, which has been quite amusing. Sitting scrolling through that, it filled a half an hour void quite nicely. But go on.
So that decision has been made. However, they found out that BetVictor were withdrawing before the coronavirus pandemic affected football. However, the league have stated that their decision to call for an early end to the season, an immediate termination to the season, was affected by their decision to pull out.
Right.
So they did have a big say in when it all came to an end. If you remember, the vote sort of went through steps 5 to 7, and then was step 3 and 4 sort of followed shortly afterwards.
So sorry, you're talking about BetVictor, right?
Yeah. So the BetVictor leagues in step 3 and 4 that they finished slightly afterwards, but they've actually now come out and actually made a statement saying that they decided to end their league season because of BetVictor pulling out. That was a large part of the decision.
Really?
And now there's a big thing sort of starting to erupt where steps 5 to 7 are now have been affected by the way their season has ended, because they've been categorized within the same steps as them, and it's all to do with their sponsor, which has got no financial gain, benefit, or influence over them whatsoever.
My mind is just completely blown by that.
Yeah. So steps 5 to 7 could be second-hand influenced as such by the fact that their sponsor pulled out in terms of why they were ended.
Wow. Okay, that's interesting. That's really interesting, actually. Because again, all I read was the comments of it's great news for the game. Gambling, addictions, etc., is a massive problem for some. These are some of the comments that people are saying. It's good that they've gone. Never should have been done in the first place. Why did the leagues decide to do this?
I mean, there was uproar when they actually won the contract.
Yeah, there was.
There's Bostic that lost it last, wasn't it?
I believe so. Yeah.
Gone from adhesives to betting.
What did BetVictor expect? Most clubs are against betting companies sponsoring, let alone promoting betting itself.
And that's where it got really funny, because one of the reasons why BetVictor stated that they had to step away from it is because too many players and clubs were flouting the betting rules.
Really?
Yeah, and it wasn't feasible to continue.
Okay. Where do you sit, Paul, on this particular topic, especially with the fact that obviously a lot of people were against it in the first place, but more kind of around what Adam was talking about as well. Where do you sit on it all?
I think personally, I just don't like betting companies sponsoring football teams, period. I don't like the fact that, if you support a club and the kids want a replica shirt, they can't have one that looks like the players have got because they can't have the betting company on it.
Yeah.
Which I know is the case with Aston Villa and with Newcastle and quite a few others.
Yeah, Norwich.
Kids want the shirt kids want the shirt the players have got, and they can't have it because it's a betting company. Well, if footballers are not allowed to bet because it's considered that much of a bad thing by the FA, then clubs shouldn't be able to take the money, as far as I'm concerned. And I like a bet, same as the next man does. I'm not saying that, but I just don't think they should be allowed to sponsor football clubs or football leagues. Cigarette companies aren't. Just get them away from it, as far as I'm concerned.
Is alcohol banned as well?
No.
I didn't think they were, but I know they were like massive when they 90s, early 2000s. There was a lot of.
It's reduced, and I believe the size of hoardings around the pitch for some things have to be of a smaller size.
Right.
I think there are some rules within it. But I think betting is going to be like what cigarette companies were to Formula One in football over time.
Yeah, I think the only ones that are banned are actually cigarettes and contraceptive companies. Actually,
Right.
believe it or not, I don't think you could. You're not allowed to have a shirt sponsorship from Durex or whatever. I have no idea why that would be, but
That's mad.
that was what I was originally told when I inquired about shirt sponsorships many moons ago. That they said, yeah, you can't have anything to do with contraception, and you can't have anything to do with certain sort of subjects like cigarettes and stuff like that. But you could at the time, and I think you still can have alcohol.
Well, I'm going to play devil's advocate, and to a certain extent, I do agree with what I'm just about to say. But with the finances in football, especially at non-league level, being such a massive topic that's going to need to be discussed over the next however many months, maybe year, betting is a massive, and I mean a massive industry that is probably still going to be running and surviving once all of this is said and done. The money that they could put into football to help, surely there's a counter argument to say, well, football has kind of dug itself into a position now where it does, rely on the betting companies to provide a large source of income from it.
It's dirty money, though, isn't it, James? It feeds addiction and it feeds bad culture.
Would you rather have your club, or would you rather have your integrity and say, well, yeah, we're not involved in betting companies?
Yeah, but they're only giving money to the big clubs anyway. They're not sponsoring the Westerfields or the Stowmarkets. They're sponsoring the Newcastles and the Aston Villas and the Tottenham Hotspurs of the world. Or leagues. There's no money going into grassroots football from these betting companies whatsoever.
BetVictor wouldn't go down as low as step 5 because you can't actually gamble on that level of football anyway, unless it's a nationalised competition. Like
they're putting money into the league, though, aren't they?
They're only at step 3 and 4 because you can bet at that level.
Yeah, and then it's only going to the league. It's not going to the clubs. I mean, that money doesn't get bunged down in any quantity to the clubs, does it?
Yeah, you won't get them betting companies sticking their name on a shirt because it's not big enough. There's not enough of a thing they have pulled out of that because there must be a reputational risk. Because I can tell you now, the amount of money that BetVictor earn, whatever they're paying for that sponsorship would be pittance.
Yeah,
like that sponsorship will be worth some money, but not megabucks.
An hour's takings probably.
Yeah, this is it. So they've pulled out of it because they can see more reputational harm than good.
Yeah,
and I think, again, in their statement, they stated how having betting within a footballing world is becoming more and more of a taboo thing to do. And I don't think you can sort of sit there on one side of the fence and say, people's mental health is being harmed by gambling and it's affecting their homes, and, only bet while it's fun, or whatever that motto is. When the fun stops, stop.
Yes. Yeah.
You can't sort of put that in one hand when every single week I walk around a football pitch and people are just staring at their phones, waiting for 50, 60 quid's worth of bets to come in. Like,
it's a good
spot on.
You can't. That isn't a healthy environment. It's toxic. And you've got to push that out of the game. You can't keep putting that in front of people. I at work even, I don't bet anymore, but I didn't start betting until I was sort of into my 20s. But we have young lads that are like, come in, they're 18 years old and they're absolutely caning money. Like customers that come in, they would freely spend a lot of money.
Yeah, I have to admit, I used to work with someone, and I'm not going to name him, but I used to work with someone who would work out what his disposable income was going to be, and the first day that he got paid, he would bet all of his disposable income on the weekend's games to try and get some more money for him to be able to spend during the month. And if he lost it all, he just didn't do anything for a month. He would have enough to pay his bills and that, but then he just would not do anything else. And I just that's insane. That's
he's now got 27 children.
Yeah.
I mean, that's where you're seeing how it affects lives, though, when people become that dependent on it.
Yeah. But going back to your point on what impact this has on the league then? Just go through that part again, because I just want to get my head around how it's going to be affecting the levels of football that we're talking about.
Well, so what they're saying is that by the sponsor pulling out, it helped make their mind up that they needed to end and terminate the season.
Right.
But the other leagues were led by their decision, is what they're saying. So steps 3 and 4 have directly influenced what's ended up happening to 5, 6, and 7, despite 5, 6, and 7 having no involvement with betting companies and Ben Victor in particular at all. So that's sort of the core of it. The issue that they now find themselves with is that they're stating that they've got they've got a business that's been, running for that league for over 60 years, about 65 years, I think it is. Never sort of not had a sponsor or whatever, but they believe now that they are truly facing a time where they won't have a sponsor, a main source of income for the league. So next year's trophies, well, whenever it is, probably won't be gold standard.
Wow. That is mental that a betting company can have that much of an impact. Again, I suppose it comes down to what you two are saying. That is where you sort of, I suppose, you play. You did make a deal with the devil. So
but it's a sort of perfect storm of events, because they operated a break clause, which was in their contract, meaning they could terminate a couple of weeks before the whole coronavirus thing kicked off. Then that kicks off, and then all of a sudden they're in a situation where you can't find anyone new.
Yeah. Insane, really. Absolutely insane. Well, not really sure where to go with that. That's absolutely mental. So, effectively, Bet Victor to blame for the whole thing.
And steps 3 and 4 financially could be a little bit screwed. But I don't know what the sponsor money pays for in the actual leagues. Like, I genuinely don't know.
Yeah.
But
well, the fact that in part of their statement they've said the bad news continues.
Yeah.
Before they talk about Bet Victor, I want to know what the other bad news was in that letter. That would be interesting to read. But
I think it probably just relates to the season being terminated.
Yeah, could well be.
Yeah, that's all been bundled together because they couldn't actually release that information until now. Because you would have thought they would have. It's a bit sneaky that they've only just let out the fact that the league sponsors have pulled out when they knew beforehand, but apparently it was embargoed.
Yeah, mental, absolutely mental. What do you make of it, guys? What do you think in terms of betting in football? What's your stance? Do you agree with the guys in terms of it should be, scrapped altogether? What do you make of it? Let us know down in the comment section.
I know I'll get massively called out for saying betting in football shouldn't be a thing. But that's where I am with it now. It's gotten too bad.
Culture, don't they? A lot of people. It's a cultural thing. It's the Saturday mornings. You wake up, you put your accas on, you go to the football, you watch your accas coming in. You're off down the pub. You're having a pint. Blah 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 blah. It's a part of that whole ritual, really, isn't it? For a lot of people.
Can't even enjoy football though when you got to bet on.
Yeah.
I don't object to betting in football. I just object to the betting companies putting money in and sponsoring. I don't have any problem with people putting money on. I don't, people want to spend their money how they want. I don't think anybody's in a position to tell people how they should spend their money.
No, that is right. Maybe it's the way it's promoted I've got a problem with.
Yeah, I just think they should keep away from, they should just keep away from football, and I'd miss my accumulators on a Saturday massively. I mean, I never win, but it's a bit like the FA Cup. If you get into it every year, you dream of getting Manchester United away in the third round. The reality is, you get knocked out in the extra preliminary round at some club you've never heard of in Hertfordshire.
Are you someone that does 50p 15 folds or something by any chance?
Sorry?
Are you someone that does 50p 15 folds?
No, I usually do £1 accumulators times 5 different things, and then
fives are the ticket, I think.
Like more than 3 goals in a game or whatever, rubbish like that. But it's a bit of fun, But I don't track on it avidly,
I used to quite like doing half-time 0-0s.
It's just it's just a bit of fun for me, you know. And half the time I forget to do it anyway. You know, so I sit there and someone says the half times, and I think, oh damn, I didn't do my echoes.
Dear me. Let's move on. Let's get away from all of the doom and gloom. I want to talk, Paul, about your career in the game. We briefly talked about it at the beginning. I think it's absolutely fascinating. Some of the clubs you've kind of been involved with, how much you've done within the game, the different roles that you've done. Just kind of, you talked about it. You started, where it all began at sixth form and the coaching badges that you did then. Were you ever in a position that you could play? Were you at a level where you thought, well, I'm in a reserve team or whatever the case may be? Did you think that your playing career could happen still at non-league or higher? What was your situation back then?
Well, it kind of, by the time I was getting to the stage of adult football, I'd already started coaching because I'd started coaching, when I wasn't even 18.
Right.
And as I sort of said before, I just found I was a much better coach than I was player. So, the choice after having the injury I had, which kept me out for a long while, I had a choice of, do I want to go and play with, let's be honest, sort of like pub standard players, or do I want to work with people who are at professional club academies and stuff? And, for me, it was a no-brainer because I found I could manage the top teams in the county in youth football, and I could play for team number 512 in the county in men's football.
Yeah.
So basically, it was a no-brainer to do the coaching.
Yeah.
And I just decided to concentrate on it, thinking, well, if I fail and if I don't do any good at it, I can always go back and play. It's not a problem.
Yeah.
But it just kind of snowballed and got better and better, and I just carried on doing it. And I've never regretted that for 1 second.
No.
I've thoroughly enjoyed the career I've had. If coronavirus got me next week, I could look back and say, yeah, do you know what? I don't regret a single thing football-wise. I've loved everything I've done. I've worked with some fantastic people. I've made literally hundreds of good friends through it.
Yeah.
Some of the players I've had are like family, even 25 years on. And yeah, I've got no regrets at all.
Do you remember your first game being on the touchline of like coaching or managing, not the sixth form team, but I mean like a club that we would recognise on that list? Like the
my very first coaching role was obviously youth football,
right?
And that was with Lawford under 13s, where Chris Tracy was the captain. He went on to have probably one of the best non-league careers ever in Suffolk, I would imagine. 1,000+ senior games and Vars finals and whatever. He was the captain of that team, and Archie Arnold I also coached at the same club when he was 9. And he went on to have a great local football career, and that's where I started. I worked my way through a lot of youth teams and had a lot of success with those youth teams.
Yeah.
Then I moved into reserve team football. That was about 10 years in, I suppose. I did that, which was alongside, that was at Brantham, alongside running the under-16s. I ran the reserves and brought the under-16s into the reserves. At that time, you didn't have to be 16 to play men's football. You could play. The SIL registration secretary defined that if you were old enough to sign your name, you were old enough to play in the SIL then. And we did sign 13 and 14-year-olds sometimes and put them in men's football, and they did really well. A lot of the best players started then. I mean, David Head played some five-a-sides for us when he was 13. His brother Simon was playing men's football at 14. A lot of the good players that have sort of been legends locally all started at 13, 14, 15 in men's football. And I brought those through. I did a few years at reserves, then gradually became an assistant manager in SIL senior, then worked my way up to joint manager at Thurlow Nunn, then outright manager, and then just done different things, different clubs ever since. I tend to be someone that doesn't get any offers in the summer, but come Christmas when teams are in real trouble, they tend to ring me because I've got a reputation for being able to put a side together quickly.
Right.
Is it the same problems through the levels that you tend to find with the teams? Are you managing the same sort of things through the levels, or do they tend to vary greatly in your experience?
They do vary greatly because obviously, putting it bluntly, money comes into play. Players now, and I know this isn't all, it's a horrible generalisation, but when you speak to any manager now, the big problem they have is reliability of players. You know, that people will call off for the slightest reason. You know, it's their granny's cat's birthday. Oh, yeah, well, I'll miss this week then, you know. And their mate's going on their mate's birthday. They're all going on the beer out, and they won't join them at 6 o'clock after they've played. They've got to be there when they start at 12 o'clock, you know.
Yeah.
And people just call off. But if you're paying them £100 a week, then they'll go and join the party at 6 o'clock. You know, so the higher up you get, the less that will happen. And I have to say, obviously, if you're really doing well, that will also be a factor as well. If people think missing a game, you know, like Cranes don't play their players, and they were saying to me, their own lads were saying to me, nobody misses because if you miss, you lose your place.
Yep.
And the lads, to be fair, the lads at Bilston and Old Newton said that to me as well. That, you know, you don't miss games unless you have to because you won't get back in. Whereas when you're near the bottom of the league, you know you'll get back in if you're a good player. You're one of the best ones. You can turn up this week, and then next week you won't bother, and then you'll turn up next week, and you know deep down you'll get back inside because they haven't got only about 5 or 6 players of exceptional level, so you're going to walk back in.
Yeah.
And reliability, it's really hard to get now. You have to get people who you know the person really, and who won't want to let you down as, you know, as Paul rather than as the manager, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I suppose then that makes looking towards youth football, you know, looking to promote players from that certain level a more desirable choice. I mean, we were talking to James Bloomfield, weren't we, a couple of weeks or maybe a week or so ago, I can't remember now, and he was talking about how much he wanted to promote youth football at Haverhill. Obviously, things didn't quite work out for him there, but he decided to go down that route because of the fact that, you know, you get that more reliability from people. Do you kind of agree with that?
Yeah, and also the players have much more loyalty to you as well. You know, that, I mean, probably one of the things I'm most known for is bringing young players through. I've always had sides full of youngsters. Often that's because I can't afford anything else, you know. If you want to succeed, basically, you know, you have to build a side. And if you can't promise them money and you can't promise them trophies, then you're not going to attract the big name players.
Yeah.
You know, because the good 25-year-olds are going to want some cash or they're going to want to win something. So therefore, you've got to build a side for nothing. And that means you've got to use young players.
Yeah.
And young players, if you treat them properly, will stick with you. I mean, I'm not going to lie. I think years ahead on that basis. You know, I don't just sort of, you know, there's 16-year-olds now that I know of that I think, yeah, do you know what? In 4 years, I want to sign him. There's even 11-year-olds I know now that I think, yeah, if their career goes the way I want, there's someone I'd want in my side in 7 years. And I take an interest in those players, and I talk to those players, not regularly or anything. I'll talk to them when I'll go and watch a game. I'll go and chat to their parents. And I'll just keep in sight, keep in mind. And then, you know, when they hit 16, 17, 18, you know, they might just be someone who will come to me because they think, oh, yeah, I know him.
And do you think it's that sort of helps you build teams quickly to get teams out of problems? Like you discussed earlier.
I was just about to ask that because when you talk about building a squad very quickly, it normally tends to be that you rely on the experienced players and, you know, the guys that have kind of been there and done that, seen it, whatever. But that doesn't. I wouldn't. You know, is that the case, or you kind of go down the youth route because you know, as you kind of talked about, really?
Well, if you sign a young player and you're putting him up to the level and you make him think he's really good and you've got some good old heads around them, then you've got a good side. And if you've only got a very limited, tiny budget, you know, that you know, it only allows you £10 a man or something, you know. If you've got 5 kids that will play for you for nothing, then you've then got £20 to get the slightly better senior players amongst them.
Yeah.
You know, and you have to be honest with them on that. You know, I'd never say to a lad, oh, yeah, nobody gets paid here, and then be bunging 5 people £20, £30 a game. You know, honesty's massive as far as I'm concerned. But most of them will understand that. You know, I'll say, look, if I've had 2 16-year-olds, 17-year-olds playing for nothing, I can pay £30 for a centre forward who'll score me 25 goals a season.
Yeah.
And the kids, they're good enough. A lot of 16 and 17-year-olds, they're hungry still. They haven't got bad habits. They haven't got a bad attitude. They want to succeed. They play the level and they've got no fear. They've got no, oh, Christ, we're playing them today and they've won 30 games in a row. They don't care. They're just out. They're going to play football.
Yeah.
You know, and you can bring them in. And I had a classic at Cornard. Young lad George played for us, a centre-back. Had to ring him up on Friday and say, look, you're going to start in the first team tomorrow. He'd never played like a men's game in his life. I said, you're going to have to play for the first team tomorrow because my centre-back's gone downhill. And we were playing FC Romania at the time. And I had to say to this kid, the bloke you're marking used to play for Deportivo La Coruña, which he did. And this kid was like, Jesus Christ, you know. And I said, well, you're going to have to do it. I said, but don't worry about it. I said, because you're on a complete hide into nothing. If you keep him out of the game, you've done fantastic. If he gets a hat trick, well, you're a 16-year-old boy playing against a former La Liga superstar.
Yeah.
You know, the same thing happened with young Callum Bellham. We had a Team Berry, 16-year-old. First game he ever played, he had to mark Josh Mayhew. Josh Mayhew scored a couple of penalties, but he didn't score from open play because Callum did a really good job on him, which a lot of other way more experienced centre-halves wouldn't have done and couldn't have done.
Yeah.
But he was up for it because he didn't think, oh, crikey, it's Josh Mayhew. He's fantastic, which he is. And he wasn't scared of him because he'd never heard of him because he's 16 and he doesn't follow Thurlow Nunn football. There could have been anybody out there in a number 9 shirt. He just happened to be a good player. They don't have that fear. You know, they have the enthusiasm and they don't have the knowledge of what the other teams are like. You know, they don't know if you track a 16-year-old in against Cranes, he doesn't know the difference between playing Cranes and Leyston St Margaret, say.
Yeah.
You know, they're just playing in the first team and they're looking forward to it and they're buzzing, you know?
Yeah, definitely.
And as
So
I say, I work years ahead. I've kind of, you know, even now, even though I might never manage another team, but I still would know where I'm going in 3 years' time if I'm looking for a 16-year-old striker to come in and maybe score me some goals at men's level, at a good level.
But that experience and knowing the game at that particular level, that even if you just go in as an assistant or as a coach or someone who's just helping out, that valuable experience to a club would be amazing, wouldn't it?
Yeah, because most of the clubs at the bottom have got no money. Let's be quite blunt. You know, most of the times I've been rung up at Christmas and someone's in trouble or they've got no points at all and they're so like, oh, you know, we don't know what we're going to do. Can you come and take the team over? You know what you're getting. You know you're going into a team that's, you know, obviously playing really badly because they've got no points or whatever. And you know you've got a limited amount of time to turn it around. But, you know, the fact is the real top players, if you say, yeah, I'd love you to come and play for me, by the way, we've got no points, they're going to say, well, I'm not coming there then. The only way you get them is if you said, here's £100, then they'd queue to sign up.
Yeah.
But
No,
you know,
money
play
talks.
teams at the bottom.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Human nature.
Yeah, exactly. So throughout your career, where has been your most successful? What's been like the club where you just thought, you know what, we've really got something special here?
So what do you measure success as, even when you've done that much?
Yeah, you see, the thing is, what is success? You know, that if you said to me, yeah, over the years, I've accumulated lots of trophies at different levels, mainly youth, admittedly. I've had 50-odd players go through to pro club academies and stuff like that. But, you know, what's success? You know, do I enjoy winning a cup more, or do I enjoy seeing one of my ex-players like Chris Tracy captain his side in the FA Vase final? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Me and Lurch have always been good mates, Chris Tracy, you know, even to this day. And I'm incredibly proud of his career. I didn't play any real part in where he ended up. I did one season with him. But the guy's had a phenomenal career, and I've been part of it here and there. You know, got him into senior football at Harwich when he first started and stuff like that. And there's loads of other people like that, and I get as much pleasure out seeing someone I've helped, even if it's only for a season or two. I love seeing them go, and for me, that's success. But I suppose if you looked on field success, it would probably be the season I had at Debenham, where I was only there for the 1 year, but we won their first trophy in 25, 26 years of existence.
Yeah.
So I suppose you could say that was a major success. It's probably the most exciting game I've ever been to, the cup final they won. Certainly be up there anyway. That was an incredible moment.
Yeah, yeah. So do you? I mean, I'll ask you then. Do you find more joy out of the team game, or do you find more joy out of finding someone that you think, oh, do you know what? I've got this really exciting player. I'm going to give him an opportunity to see what happens there. Where do you get the more sense of pride?
It's actually both, if I'm really honest with you.
Right.
You know, I had a lad last year that I had to coach 1-to-1. He was over here from Celta Vigo. He's only 14-year-old.
Yes, I remember having a conversation with you about this guy.
He was unbelievable. You know, and coaching him just took me to new levels because I've never worked with anybody. I mean, this lad was predicted to be a Spanish international and whatever, and I've never seen a player like it. And coaching him gave me such a buzz. It was literally, you know, 2 hours on a pitch with someone who can take 43 kicks and put all 40 of them in the top corner. You know, and you're doing stuff like that. And I was trying to set him tasks he couldn't do. I told him to do 10 volleys that I threw to him into a netball net where there's no background. He put all 10 in, you know, and when you work with someone like that, you just go away and you buzz, and it's like winning a trophy. But obviously winning a trophy, winning a football match is a fantastic feeling as well. So there's kind of pleasure in both. I'm currently coaching, not regularly, but I do a sort of session every few weeks for a lad who's only, I think he's 11, maybe 12. And he's the best finisher that I've seen since Rennie Swan, who's probably my favourite all-time non-league striker I've managed.
Right.
And I get a buzz when I do shooting with him, and he'll stick 20 and they'll all be dead in the bottom corner, and you'll think like, yeah, I love this, you know? And I get that buzz with that, and I still get that buzz when I win a football match, you know. There's different feelings, you know, and you sort of sit and, you know, you could talk till the cows came home basically about what gives you a buzz in football, and there's a million and one things. Signing a good player when everybody else is after him. So seeing one of your mates play and he plays brilliantly, and, you know, maybe they'll do something that you taught them. You know, you might have done a session with someone 1-to-1 on heading on corners, and you go and watch them play on a Saturday and they get up there and head a couple of corners in, and you think, yeah, I love this. It's all part of it. And, you know, I just love everything about football. It doesn't matter what, you know, if someone asks me, you know, what's the favourite moment in football ever, it might well be not the actual winning of that trophy with Debenham, but seeing the sort of supporters who'd been there for 25 years with the trophy afterwards, taking their turns to lift it and have their photo taken, and seeing the incredible amount of pleasure that they all were getting from it. You know, for me, it was a trophy and it was a nice trophy and I was really chuffed, but to them, it's their club. It means more, you know. That's their club. As a manager, you just move club to club, you know. There's never really your club. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a temporary thing.
Yeah. So just to go back on the lad you had from Celta Vigo, have you heard much from him recently? How he's kind of getting on just before?
Well, he's been locked in a flat for 4 weeks at the moment. So
of course, at the moment,
So that's kind of where he's at. But he's coming back to see us for a week in September if everything is all right by then, or whenever it is. He's going to come back and see us then. So yeah, he's just been aggressive. He's still a youngster, so he's still just playing in the youth teams and whatever. But
he's still in the Celta Vigo kind of setup.
Yeah, he's still in their setup. Yeah, I think he's sort of. As I say, he's not played many games this year. They don't play many games. A lot of these academies, they don't have 40-game seasons. You know, they'll train 3 or 4 times a week, but they don't seem to play many matches. I think probably because, you know, they don't have proper structure at that level like they do over here. So they end up playing the local town teams and thrashing them, and it's all a bit pointless, you know.
Yeah, well, I suppose from their perspective, obviously that's probably why Spain's got such a successful youth setup, because they don't thrust these guys into a team aspect as quickly as what we do over here. There's no,
and they've all got artificial pitches. It was the first time he'd ever played on grass when he came here.
Really?
Yeah, he'd never played on a grass pitch. Everything out there is 3 and 4G.
That is mad.
I think at grassroots level, that's where we're going to fall behind massively, because the kids don't have that ability just to get out as often. And
that's
play.
the problem. Games get called off. I mean, I lost half a term this year virtually to rain, because it rained solidly for about 4 or 5 weeks.
Yeah.
And we just couldn't play. we couldn't train, we couldn't play, and then literally as soon as that finished, we had about 2 weeks football, and then the coronavirus kicked in.
Yeah.
It's mental.
Insane. Really, really is insane. So let's talk about most recent job then at Westerfield.
Yep.
I suppose that must have been a very tricky. Well, you've talked just very briefly there, saying that you normally come into a club, during the season. But how frustrating was it for you that you never really got an opportunity to kind of see the job through, and constant web delays, and then obviously with the recent news, etc. Has that been a bit of a source of frustration? You haven't been able to see that job to the end?
No, not at all, to be honest, because ironically, I went in there just to keep them going. I sort of told them very early doors that I wouldn't be doing next season, but I'd make sure that club did not fold. That was all I wanted to do, was make sure that club did not fold. I didn't want it to go the way of Bramford. So all that mattered was getting the team out every week. As I say, I got Adam Potter in with me straight away, and he was absolutely fantastic. He's going to be an absolutely brilliant manager for him. Hopefully they'll let him continue it next season. He just knows so many people at that level, because that is a big part of the problem. I went in there and I thought, oh, well, there'll be loads of people who come and play for me, because there's lots of people I've done favours for. They'll come and play for me for nothing. But then when I actually went off, and there were mainly Thurlow Nunn players, they said, well, dropping down the league's one thing, but dropping down the league to a team with -1 point, that's another thing. And I play for you for free, but you're asking me to pay £5 subs on a home game. And they're like, I'll play for you for nothing, but I'm not paying to play, It's a little bit of a principle with some of the players, and that's true at a lot of the clubs. There's a lot of clubs where they just don't pay anything, and it's a lot easier to get a player to come and play for you, even if he's used to earning money. They'll come and play for free. But when you're saying to them it's going to cost you money, they have a little bit of a reflex of, whoa, hang on, I don't want to pay to play. That feels like to them like a Sunday morning,
And, I mean, we're seeing in the non-league pyramid, probably it's fair to say more players seem to be stepping down at the moment than stepping up. Is that a reflection of money starting to creep in from the lower levels, do you think?
No, I don't. I honestly don't think it is. I mean, there's always rumours that this person's getting paid and that person's getting paid, but I'm 99% sure. For example, no one at Cranes gets paid. I'm absolutely certain of that. And they're the best side by a million miles in the SIL, along with Henley. I mean, I don't know if Henley pay or not. They may do, they may not.
I think it's baffling. There's some talent in those teams though that doesn't play at higher levels equally. Because they could get paid.
Yeah, but if you go to the higher levels at that level, you're probably getting £10 or £20, and then you're having to go to Kings Lynn on a Tuesday night, and you're having to go to Fakenham on a Saturday, and you're leaving at 12 o'clock, and you're getting home at 8 o'clock at night. And for £20, and a lot of them will say, well, do you know what? I can go and play for Cranes or Henley or any other really top sides around, like Cobblestonians as well, Bilderston, any of those. They're really cracking sides. They're a match of most of the bottom half of the Thurlow Nunn League teams. I'm not saying that they're as good as the top ones, but even on their day, they could still beat those. Every year the Senior Cup kind of proves that. And they'll say, well, do you know what? I can be out of the house for 3 hours for nothing, or I can be out of the house for 8 hours for £20, and they'll choose to play locally. There's a lot less pressure. There's a lot less hassle. You haven't got evening games as a rule, and I can totally see why they do it. And some of them, you could, if you go, for example, I keep going on about Cranes. I'm not some kind of massive addict Cranes fan, but they are the benchmark locally at the moment. And if you look at them, you've got Damo Brown there, you've got Paul Tejan, you've got Rads. There's 3 people there that you're going to just learn so much off if you're a player as well. And it's not, you're not dropping down to a lower standard massively. Yes, it is a little bit lower overall than the Thurlow Nunn, but there's not a lot in it with the top sides. And you're still working with really good people, and you're still playing with really good players. Most of the people in the Crane side could play Thurlow Nunn without any shadow of a doubt. Same at Henley. There's hardly a player on the Henley side that I would think couldn't go and play that level, and all the other sides at the top. The bottom, I think the SIL senior has now become a bit of a top and bottom half thing, where the sides at the bottom are not as good as the sides at the top anymore.
Yeah.
But the Thurlow Nuns the same. The top 8, 10 of the Thurlow Nun divisions are way better than the bottom 10 now.
Yeah, I think it is very much in the SIL. Once you get out of the first division, you do see a lot of teams going up to the senior now and doing quite well. I mean, you look at Old Newton, they're 4th, Bilderston are 8th, both been promoted and have comfortably settled into
yeah, and again, both of those really good experienced managers who really know their stuff, people you're going to learn from as a footballer, Bart, tremendous manager, you're going to learn a shed load from him, aren't you?
Yeah,
same with Macca, that they're good people. They're good people that you're going to learn football from, the same as you would in the other levels. You're going to be playing again in both teams. You're playing alongside really top quality players. There's not masses of difference. I mean, I'm a massive Thurlow Nun fan. I miss it massively. It's the only league to be in, as far as I'm concerned. But that's because of the stadiums and because I love the travelling. I'm one of the weird people who actually enjoys a 2-hour trip on a bus. I think it's great fun. It's I can't get enough of away days. If I could have a 4-hour journey, I'd still be happy. Because it's all part of it for me.
Yeah.
You make sure your trip's enjoyable. Then it isn't a chore. It's a good laugh. It's 4 hours with a bunch of your mates.
Yep.
And I think, as I say, I think both of those leagues, they're great leagues. And even if you go into SIL1, I mean, I know you'll know this because you see the games as well. SIL1 has some tremendous players in, and there's some tremendous teams in.
Do you know that even a Div? I've gone to quite a few Division 3 games. There's still some really good players down in Division 3.
Absolutely. I mean, I had a little trip into Division 2 briefly before I went to Westerfield, and Tattingstone, I saw fantastic team. Loads of really good players who could play way higher, but they're a good bunch of lads. Again, they're having a good time. They're enjoying their football. They're playing well. What's not to like?
Yeah. And sometimes that's worth more than, as you said, getting paid the 20 quid, whatever it is.
When you get 50 quid, it's different. That changes your lifestyle. When you're getting 20 quid, it doesn't.
No, you do have to question that, don't you? No, definitely. So your situation at the moment, obviously, I know the whole of the football pyramid has come to a bit of a grinding halt, but you are no longer with.
No, I was. I'd already told them I wasn't going to do it again next year. But as I say, the chap I was doing it with, Adam Parr, hopefully he's going to, 90% sure he's going to stay and do it.
Yeah.
And I think he'll do tremendous with them. I really do.
Yeah. But I suppose that all really depends on, how the SIL decide to finish the season, really, doesn't it? I guess that's the big thing.
Well, as at the moment, I think because it's step 7, it's null and voided, so they're still up. So as far as we're concerned, we kept them up. albeit totally by default, but at the end of the day, the mission was to keep them up. We've kept them up.
Job done.
Definitely.
It may have needed a horrific worldwide virus to make it happen.
It's quite a length to go to just to.
Certainly not what we would have wanted, but obviously, because it's certainly not something I'd make light of either. But we have stayed up by default because of the fact the season's gone the way it's gone. So kind of it is mission accomplished, albeit in the most horrific circumstances.
Yeah. How do you think they'll be fixed for next season?
I think they'll do right. I think he'll get good players in. Because it was the fact we had -1 was the problem we had getting people. Next year they haven't got -1 point. Whatever season starts, it'll be nil.
Yeah.
And when you're starting at nil, the same as everybody else, you've got half a chance of getting players. Because no one wants to join a team that they think is going to get thrashed every week. But people will give you pre-season a look, so you've got some good lads there, and they'll sign.
Yeah.
What was it that you lost? How come you were on negative points there? Well, not you, because I know you came in after that had happened. What was the case there?
They called a game off, and if you call a game off, you get deducted 2 points.
Right.
So they've got 1 point from a draw with someone, and then that 2 points deducted.
Yeah.
But I mean, it was horrendous. The day I went to watch them to have a chat with the chairman, they actually only had 10 players from the start that day.
Good grief.
And that was the theme we had. Adam, the guy running it with me, had to play a couple of times. You know, we just found it really hard to get a side out because people just kept missing games for various reasons. Every week, 4 or 5 people would be unavailable. Same as every other club, you know, every manager I spoke to during the games I was there had the same thing. They was, you know, had one sub sometimes, or, you know, the manager and his assistant would be 2 of the 3 subs and things like that. And it was sort of getting quite bad at times. There's a lot of teams folded during the year. And I don't think that's going to change. And I mean, it might even be worse because now people have got used to not playing. So there might be a few now who think, yeah, do you know what? I don't really want to do that on a Saturday anymore. But I think Potts will get a good team together. And I think, you know, I'm not saying they're going to win the league next year or anything, but I think they won't have a struggle next year. That's my personal opinion.
Yeah.
I think they'll be fine.
Good. Well, fingers crossed that the club does still continue for next season. Let's finish on the Twitter questions that we've had coming in, because I'm very conscious of time.
Okay.
Let's start off with Luke Riley. He said he ventured lower than he's ever been this season. How did he find it? I'm guessing he's talking about his your time over at.
Yeah, I think it's been tough. It's actually not lower than I've ever been because obviously I did Branton reserves in Intermediate B and I did Grunsbury reserves in Intermediate A, which I don't know if that's classed as being above Division 2 or not, but I wouldn't have said so. But I enjoyed it. I mean, you know, the manager there was a really good guy. There were some really good players there, including Luke himself, you know.
Yeah.
Luke's tremendous, like really good leader on a pitch, you know, and they've got some really good people at the club. I think I found it difficult to adjust because it's a very, very different level. And, you know, the social side was back there and I'd almost forgotten what the social side of football was like because for the last 10 years kind of thing, players don't really stop for a drink after a game at Thurlow Nunn level and even SL Senior very much. And when I got there, you know, let's get down the pub, and we'd still be down there 2 hours later on a Saturday, and it was it was quite nice to get back to that. But at the same time, again, you know, people miss games for a lot of reasons. You know, they got deducted 2 points because a load of the lads went to watch Ipswich one day and they had to call a game off because they couldn't get a side out. Wow. And that 2 points has, you know, left them in relegation difficulties, you know, or had left them in relegation difficulties. But again, you know, there's some good players there. There's a kid who they've signed. I won't say his name as such, other than that his first name's Connor. But they've got a 16-year-old kid who will start playing for them next year, who I think is going to be a really, really, really good player.
He's not a fullback, is he? He's not either a left or a right back, is he?
No, he's a centre mid. He hasn't played for the men's yet, I don't think.
Oh, okay. Because there was one lad I saw there, and I can't remember his name now. He played at left back in the pre-season friendly, and they told me he was 16 years old. He was.
Yeah, I know the one you mean. Yeah, well, it could be one of 2, but they've got some good youngsters there, and those youngsters will click in, and they've got a massively good youth policy coming through as well.
Yeah.
And as I say, in Tom and Luke and that, they've got some fantastic people there, so they'll be fine.
Good. We'll go on to Drew's question. Drew Kendall. Anybody in non-league football will know who Drew is. He's last couple of years he's been all over loads.
I was at Team Berry with him. I know him well.
Yeah, he's asked your favourite. Where is it? Your favourite meal deal? That's it. That's a very heated topic online. Do people get much about this?
Well, there's a little bit of a standing joke at Team Berry, you see, that anybody who we thought was a bit dull, we used to call them a just ham meal deal, which is we used to say that anyone who'd have just ham, ready salted crisps and water was boring, you know. And we used to say, oh yeah, he's a just ham player, you know, and that was a little bit of a joke we had amongst us. But
right.
as a sensible answer, I think I'd go flaming hot Monster Munchers crisps, cheese and pickle sandwich, and a sugar-free energy drink.
I was involved in one of these conversations about meal deals yesterday on live stream, and they were saying, whenabouts do you eat the crisps in a meal deal? Apparently that's the new part to have an argument about now. Do you have them before the sandwich, after the sandwich, because therefore they're classed as a dessert?
They are
throughout the meal. Yeah, they are the dessert in a meal deal, aren't they?
Or if If you're a bit old like me and old school, you might sneak a few of the crisps into the sandwich as well.
That got mentioned and was met with absolute uproar. Apparently, that's not the thing to do, but I think crisp sandwiches are incredible.
A cheese and pickle sign with a couple of flaming hot Monster Munching is a whole new realm, believe me.
Crisp sandwich like just takes you back to your childhood, doesn't it? Do you know what I mean? That's just.
Especially when you put frazzles.
Oh yes.
Frazzles and a crisp sandwich is pretty special.
Yeah.
I have to tell you, the last game I did, we went to Ben Hall and they had chip butties afterwards. Literally two slices of bread already with butter on, and you just help yourself to chips out the container, stuck it in the bread, and I was so happy. I hadn't had a chip butty in years.
Some of the teams where I've gone this year, I've managed to get a bit of food after the game with the players. For my involvement, I tend to sneak in afterwards, and whenever I find sausage roll and chips, I'm in my absolute element. So some teams try and do something really nice, but sausage roll and chips on a match day, something special about that.
Yeah, definitely. We've got two final questions. Kyle French asks, which player has impressed you the most this season and why?
Ooh, well, that's a good question. We had a very good lad played for Cranes against us called I believe it was called Cameron J. Smith, who was quite a young lad, and he was very impressive, I have to say. Oh God, I can't think of the lad's name now. You know, you sometimes get a mental block.
Yeah.
The guy gets all the goals for Claydon. I've totally forgotten his name, which I shouldn't do, but he was fantastic against us this year. He gets an absolute shed load of goals. I can't believe I've forgotten his name. But
names escaping me as well. But
he was very good against us as well. But you know, most of the teams in the SIL senior, they've all got good players. I mean,
yes.
we're at the goalkeeper we signed at Westerfield, who did all the games when I was there, basically bar one. A lad called Ben Barks, absolutely brilliant goalkeeper, and a young lad. And you know, every time he played, he was absolutely sensational. You know, so even from amongst, I can't claim to have signed him. As I say, he was already there when I got there, but absolutely brilliant goalkeeper.
Yeah.
So he'd be high up the list. And then I've seen a couple of really good youngsters as well. Like I say, that I think, you know, when I've watched youth games, there's a few real good youngsters coming through in the local area. So, you know, I think the future's very bright still.
Yeah, that's as you said. Hopefully if people continue to stay in the game. Final question from Ben Moore, who is a regular commenter and listener of the program. So shout out to Ben. He said, any tips for a young coach like myself? I'm trying to follow in my great-granddad Bob Coleman's footsteps, so any tips would be great. He then asked a separate part, best player you've played to play for you, and also you've had the pleasure to play with. But we'll go back to his original one. Any tips for a young coach? Because I will be particularly interested in this, because it is something I'm seriously considering.
I think there's several things actually. Firstly, is always be honest with players, because the moment you start giving people a bit of you know what and lying to them, local football is the smallest world ever. And the moment you stitch one person up, you can be sure everybody will know and nobody will trust you when you're talking to them. Right. And, you know, by being honest, I mean, don't make false promises as well. Don't say, oh, yeah, sign for me and you'll get this and you'll get that and we're going to win this and we're going to win that, because you can't ever say that.
No.
And I think if you always be straight and honest with players, and always, you know, so if a team from 3 divisions higher comes in and it's a good move for them, tell them to go. Don't hold them back, because if it doesn't work out at the higher club, they'll always think, you know what, he looks after me well, he was decent, and they'll always come back to you. Yeah. And if you have players who are loyal to you, who you've treated well, been honest with, they'll always come back to you. I mean, I won't name his name because of what I'm about to say, but I had a lad playing for me at Cornard who got offered £80 a game by another club. He was getting nothing at Cornard, and he was out of work. And he said, I don't really want to leave, but what do I do? And I said, well, you've got no income. You have to take that £80.
Yeah.
So he took the £80. When he got a job, he rang me up and he said, I don't need their £80 now. Can I come back? And he literally did. And he came straight back to us the very week he got a job. And, that's because we treated him right. If I hadn't told him and I'd sort of tried to kick off and held up the transfer and stuff, he'd have just gone somewhere else and earned £30. And I think that's a crucial thing. And also, like I said to you about planning ahead, because, if you're going to be a young coach and you say you're in your 25, you might have got 30 years in the game. So the people who are loyal to you now are not going to still be around in 15 years' time, probably. So keep looking at the lower levels, keep making an effort to coach a few youngsters, to help a few youngsters, because in 15 years' time, they might be the best striker in the SIL, and they'll remember that you looked after them when they were 15, and they'll come back and they'll play for you.
Yeah,
and that is crucial. Your reputation in local football is everything, and you don't have to have a reputation to be the most successful coach, but you do have to have a reputation for being honest, a good bloke, and someone who will try and get the player to the highest level he ever could have got under your guidance, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And that was stuff, I must admit, I learned off Kevin Cunningham, the ex-Grunsborough and Ipswich Wanderers manager, who always said to me, he said, the football knowledge amongst all the managers is pretty well the same. It's having people want to play for you a second time is the crucial thing you have to make sure of. And he's right, because there's a limited pool of good players.
I love that. That is some pretty solid advice there.
That's the best advice I could give anybody. There's not technical stuff. It's make sure your reputation as a person is good.
Yeah.
I'm not saying mine's brilliant, but people do come back and play for me, and I don't seem to get a lot of slating online. I probably will now have said that, but I did that.
Not what Paul said to me 3 years ago.
Yeah, I did that Facebook thing where that everybody's been doing, where you ask what what people thought of you football wise, and I had about 60 people all say, "Yeah, I really love playing for you. It was really nice," and it was really nice to read that. And I thought, well, they might have won loads of trophies with me as a kid, or they might have won nothing with me, but they're all happy with the time they had with me, and that's worth more than all the trophies in the world.
Yeah,
as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, superb. Adam, any final questions from you?
No, I mean, I think this has been one of the most comprehensive but free-flowing podcasts that we've actually done.
I've absolutely thoroughly enjoyed it.
I've learned so much.
I honestly, it's given me so much food for thought. It really, really has. Absolutely.
Meal deals and biscuits.
Well, these are important things. God, that's a meal deal. That's something you take for granted. I can't remember the last time I bought a meal deal.
Yeah, truth be told, I actually can't, to be honest, myself. I'll talk about it. I'll talk about it on a future podcast. What I would have. But
ham sandwich and water.
Well, no.
Really salty crisps.
Yeah.
I go a little bit more.
That's why James won't go on about it now.
But Paul, thank you so much for coming on. Really, really appreciate it.
I really enjoyed it. Thanks for letting me bore you for this long.
No, thanks, Paul. You've been great. You have
not bored us at all. But if you've enjoyed the podcast as much as myself and Adam have, make sure you hit the thumbs up. Leave all. I don't know how podcasts work on other platforms other than YouTube. Adam, I think you have to leave reviews. Is that right? Am I correct in saying?
Yeah, on iTunes you can leave a little review for us. Tell us what you thought about it.
I think it's 5 stars, isn't it? Something like that.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But we've got lots of exciting stuff coming up. Do you want to introduce our next?
Yes.
Podcast?
The next guest that we have on is ex-Manchester United, Stoke, West Ham, Norwich, amongst other clubs, professional Luke Chadwick. I'm so excited to be speaking to him tomorrow. So many things I want to ask him, so many questions I've got. That is sure to be a fascinating discussion. So if you've got any questions for Luke, let us know over on Twitter. I've already put a tweet out about it. But yeah, let us know by replying to that tweet. But again, Paul, thank you so much for what you've done tonight, and your continued work within the non-league game. Hopefully, what is going on at the moment doesn't spoil things moving forward. But I hope you're going to be around for a lot longer. And when I finally do make the call to go into non-league football and coaching, etc., I will be knocking on your door asking for more advice. I can be sure of that.
He'll probably join you at a new club.
Well, the problem is if you knock on my door at the moment due to social distance, then I'll have to talk to you through the window.
Well, that's fine. I tell you what. What about this, Adam?
Yeah.
Me as the manager, Paul as assistant, and you can be coach. How do you like that?
I mean, I think I need to manage the team.
Right.
Well, I'd rather have you as a physio. I know you like giving people a good rub down.
Anyway, we're going to leave it on that. Thank you very much, Adam. Really appreciate that final comment. Normal stuff, thumbs up, comments, subscribe to the channel, all that kind of stuff. Thank you very much. And as always, until we see each other next time, adios.